I had an argument with the former Secretary General of DAP. His name is Lim Guan Eng. He's now the chairman. I shared with him privately at that point in time, it was after the Sheraton move, that it may be good maybe for him to consider not taking up the position of chairman of DAP. And because of that, he asked, the branches under his control, especially those in Penang, not to vote for me during the CEC elections in my party. That was in 2022. And because of that, I wasn't elected into national office.
Welcome to Workaround Podcast. This is Mi Fong. As you can see the news set here today in the studio, we are already in season 2 Workaround Podcast with a new tagline of Work-Life Freedom. Now with me today to launch a first episode of season 2, we have a special guest today with needs no introductions. We have our very own Dr Ong Kian Ming.
Hello.
Thanks, Kian Ming.
Thanks for having me for your inaugural episode of season 2. I'm very glad to be here.
Yes.
Very glad to be in this very cozy studio.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to have you. Now, how to get to know about podcasts of Workaround?
Well, you told me about it, and then I looked at the SYOK slate of podcasts, and then I listened to a couple of your podcasts. The first one was the one on mental health, which I found very invigorating and very informative. And the other one, which I found very interesting as well, was the one on corporate athletes. Yeah, so that one was by Alex, and because I like to run and exercise as well.
Right.
Yeah, so that one I found to be quite interesting. And maybe just to give you a tidbit, Alex talked about how you needed to empower your corporate athletes by giving them certain resources, giving them certain flexibilities. And allowing them to exercise some bargaining power as well, so that they can perform better. In the world of politics, sometimes the equation is different from the corporate world. In the corporate world, you were a former HR director, right? So you would definitely want to look out for the stars and try to empower them, correct? In the world of politics, sometimes, especially when you're starting out, it's not so good to shine too much.
I think so. In politics, yeah.
Because if you shine too much, then people will be paying attention to you and they want to cut you down to size. So sometimes, it's about trying to do, maybe not your best, trying to do just better than average. Right?
Better than average. Okay. And then to show that you are the potential star there.
Yes, don't maximize your potential so fast. So meaning don't show your cards so fast.
Yeah. But I thought Kian Ming is quite relevant in the corporate world today, because I did mention that in the podcast also. Because if you are the top performers, everyone will come to you. One day you'll be exhausted as well, provided the support system is there. Right. Yeah,
so you have that classic case of corporate burnout. I've been in the corporate world in the past. And this 80-20 rule, where, if let's say you have 20% of your top performers, you burden them with more things without giving them the proper support, then quite a number of them will burn out. That's quite common.
Yeah.
How about yourself when you were in the HR line? You had to manage so many people. Did you see that to be a common occurrence as well?
It's common, but I try to have a high level awareness that burnout is something that we need to take note of as a leader. So how we do is actually, how I personally do is actually, I normally categorize my team into 3. So one is really can run. So let them run, but see them how they run. Second one is actually, so long as you prepare them, you know that they will run well. Another group is actually, I will hold their hand. I know that they need me, so we run together. But we walk first lah. See how they walk, and then
maybe after that jogging a bit. Then after that you can run faster.
Correct. So, but you will see as a leader, right? You will see the satisfactions when you see that the category 1 move to category 2, and then you will have more category 3, right? So, but then if you have too many top performers in the team, it's also a challenge for you to so-called to manage, and also it's also time for you to kind of relearn your leadership, because they have a different level of expectations.
Yeah. Do you find that it's difficult to sort of like manage the competition, so to speak, between the top performers?
Yes, definitely, because they are in positions to ask for more. Not only in terms of the projects, they will be very selective of course, they are qualified to be selective. I want to do this. I want to make sure that project that I do is something that can make me shine in future. And of course, when it comes to compensation negotiation, when it comes to my next level, like for example, I deal with a lot of young talent. I love them. They are the one who really challenge you every day. Oh, Mi Fong, I'm done with this project. What's next for me? So Mi Fong, that's all. This is my second year here. What's next for me? I want to do more. What can you offer? So they were constantly challenging you, and also it's good for me. I take it as a lesson to brush up my own leadership skills as well.
Yeah, so I think that's sort of like a good pivot in terms of talking about how different people sort of like transition to different career paths and the kind of challenges that they want to seek for themselves, right? I'll share some experience later, but let's say for you, I mean, I'm just curious because you haven't really said this or explained this in previous podcasts as far as I'm aware. What made you transition, and pivot from a HR role to then doing this podcast?
Oh my goodness, I'm thankful for this. As a podcaster or interviewer, we're hardly to be interviewed.
Yes.
I think I found my why because I've been doing talent space for so many years. The things that I see is actually what is missing in the communities, in the corporate world today is something that people dare not to speak out of like our HR context. So for me, I want to come out for a while to share something that perhaps it's become a taboo. It became a taboo or become too sensitive for me to talk about if I am in the position of HR. For example, talking about workplace harassment, talking about the performance management. You will speak on behalf of the company, although you try your best to be a leader, but somehow you know that your people need help, further help than being HR. So this is one thing.
How to manage bad bosses. That one is very sensitive.
Yeah. Probably I am the back boss for them as well, right? So secondly is actually slowly, I also offer myself in the mentoring programs voluntarily. I've been doing that for the past 8 years, I guess. So this is how I contribute to the committees as a whole, because I want to do extra, because there are things that I can't talk to my manager. There are things that I can't talk to my HR.
Sure.
So make sure you have a third party that well-versed enough in that topic and then can be their mentor or maybe their advisor. Okay. And then thirdly, to podcast, because I always wanted to contribute to the nation and communities in my own way. What can I do with my accumulated experience? This is a best avenue for me to start off in my podcast.
Okay, so this is just a plug, I think you'll be able to see in the subscription link, below how to subscribe to the SYOK podcast and then the work around our podcast specifically.
Thanks, Kian Ming.
To do a plug for you. I wanted to ask you, and I'll come back to myself later. When you say you want to do the mentoring and pivot towards that, how do you, what kind of organization do you work with? Who do you work with so that you can find the right kind of mentors that you can assist and help?
I am currently engaged with one online platform. Actually, the CEO, the founder, also was in my podcast last week in episode 7. You may check it out.
Okay.
So I think this is a digital platform for all the vendors from different countries to engage with the mentors like us, free of charge. The range of the mentees is actually, the age range is actually from 19, the youngest is 19, towards like, I think the mid 30s as well. So what they wanted to know more, I think majority is still very much in the career planning. For example, what if I want to have this change in my career from one field to another field? What should I do? Sure. So I think from my personal experience, definitely I'm able to add value. But my style is actually, I try to help them to fish, because my style is I don't give them advice. I normally will kind of ask questions, what you really want, and then they will figure out what they really want. I think that's amazing. So I think this is the platform that I normally involve in offering my service so-called.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before I go to my own story of this career transition or career change, what kind of questions do you normally ask in terms of people who are looking to pivot to another career?
What you really want. I think that's very important. The passion itself, but I try to manage it. Sometimes passion will drive you blindly. Sometimes, we are in a realistic world. Let's be real, right? Passion is good, but what you really want, and then plus your passion and then what you want to achieve. I think that's very important. You will realize, Kian Ming, that not everyone able to answer what I really want. I just want to move out from my job.
Correct.
But what's next for you? You don't have the clear what. Because I think I really truly recommend this book because you will find a lot of whys in yourself. Then you're able to answer what and how.
Sure.
So you need a lot of training and also do some journaling of what you really want and then plus your passion, whether your passion is realistic or not.
Sure.
Then you move on.
The self-awareness part lah.
Correct.
I was thinking about this on the way here to the studio, and I thought, in terms of career pivot and career transitions, passion would be one important thing. The other thing would be your priorities, where you want to prioritize work-life balance, the kind of goals and objectives that you want to pursue, family. And then the third one would be people, the kind of people that you want to work with, the kind of people you want to interview.
Right. Yeah.
So for myself, I mean, this is not many politicians, I think, would come and talk about how they transition, from being a elected representative to something else.
Correct.
Although, I need to caveat here, I'm still in politics in the sense that I'm still a member of my party.
You are still.
But I don't hold any positions at the national level, and I'm not an elected representative. So when I made the decision not to contest in the last general election, that was with the intention of wanting to go back to academia, because I was in academia. I have a PhD in political science, and at that time I wasn't quite sure what path that will take me down. So looking at the issue of the passion, priorities, and also people, I managed to find a very good landing spot to start a new program, philosophy, politics, and economics at Taylor's University.
Yeah.
Right, so this is a passion of mine because I want to start something that's new. It'll be the first program of its kind. Hopefully, I'll be able to train the new generation of leaders, both in politics, corporate policy making. And then in terms of priorities, wanting to go back into more of academic research. And then the last one, people, the going back into academia, working with young people, working with other researchers. So far, I think I've made the right decision, and quite glad that this has opened up other doors and other opportunities that we can talk about later.
Sure. I read CV every day. I interview people every day. And normally, by not knowing that person, I normally will summarize that person profile. So for you, I kind of summarize the keywords here lah. How you pivot is actually from consulting to academia, and then public service, and then back to the academia again. But you also have done line hats at the same time, right?
Yeah. So actually, this pivot is quite interesting because I started out with wanting to go back to academia and pursuing what I said just now, but I'm also very blessed and very glad that other doors have opened. So other than this PPE program, I'm also a board member of the Malaysian Investment Development Authority, MIDA. And that gives me locus standi to talk to different investors, both domestic and foreign. I'm also attached to a think tank, or was attached to a think tank in Singapore called Yusof Ishak Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. I write for them, I do research for them, have a couple of articles printed out and published. I'm also a senior advisor to a advisory firm that's based in London called Global Counsel, working with the office in Singapore. So those would be positions where I'm given some compensation. So you can see I still have some role in the corporate as well as in the public policy space, and that's been quite fruitful and quite encouraging to see that my skills are still needed.
It's still relevant.
Yeah, correct.
But Kian Ming, where this time, resources, passion, motivation come from? Because you are wearing so many hats at the same time. Yeah.
So this would not have been something that I could have done 10 years ago without the experience of going through politics, going through policy making, going through being in government as a deputy minister for MITI. And what I'm really hoping to do, and I think having a little bit of success, is trying to add value to the lives of others, to corporations, especially SMEs, and also to public policy making. Right. So in addition to those positions that I mentioned just now, which are compensated for, I also wear a couple of pro bono advisory roles. So, for example, I was appointed as advisor to the Malaysia-China Chamber of Commerce. So they do a lot of G2G, especially on the provincial and state and city level with China, with Chinese companies and also with Malaysian companies. I've also been appointed as member of the advisory council for the Federation of Malaysian Manufacturers. So these will be big and small manufacturers. A friend of mine managed to convinced me to join the board member of the Danish Chamber of Commerce. And the largest Danish company is actually Carlsberg. And there are other companies in the service sector as well. And I was also appointed last year as advisor to the Selangor Digital School. It's an initiative under the Selangor state government to train AI as well as a big data analytics resource. And then the last one is we had our first meeting yesterday, a member of the independent committee to advise MITI on the future of the iron and steel sector in Malaysia. So all these are pro bono roles, trying to help out and contribute in different ways.
How many hats? So I lost count. But how do you manage your time?
So a few things. I think in one of your episodes you talk about being in the 5 a.m. club. I'm sometimes member of the 4 a.m. club. So I get up very early when there's no disturbances, no WhatsApp to answer. Then I start work. And then I go for a bit of exercise. That's one. Start work early. And then second thing is multitask. My wife always says, don't do multitasking. You've also talked about that in one of your episodes. I don't have a choice. So when I'm driving, I listen to podcasts to update myself on the latest information. Sometimes when I'm attending meetings, I clear emails and WhatsApps. Hopefully the quality of the work is not badly affected. And then I think that the third thing is also to do things very fast. Based on my experience, I can write media statements in like an hour.
I think so. Based on my interaction with you, very fast one.
So everything sort of like speeds up, and that compress maybe 2 days of activities in one. So I still can sustain it because I get energy from the interactions. But it's something that everyone has to find their own sweet spot to pace themselves so they don't get burnt out.
Don't you have PA to do that, to manage your schedule?
No, I find the managing schedule part to be quite therapeutic. It's something that I start off in the morning or maybe weekends so that I can plan and maximize the time. And I also can see who are the ones that I said I'm gonna promise to meet them. Then I put them into the schedule. And again, the multitasking part comes in. If I can do exercise, running, and also run with a friend that I want to catch up with.
Why not, right?
Yes,
my goodness.
Yes.
Also, this is multitasking come from, right?
Yes.
I keep it in the multitasking.
Exactly.
Now, back to the questions of the career pivot. You started your career in management consulting firm.
Yeah, Boston Consulting Group.
Yeah. But one thing before that, I somehow, as I mentioned to you, I read people's CV every day. But how I summarize that, you could be the potential brain drain to the country is because you were educated in Singapore. You were doing internship in Singapore. Knowing that how Singapore government appreciate and able to attract and retain the top talent like you, but you choose to come back. What makes you do that?
So that's a very good question. And a lot of people have asked me this, why didn't I go to Singapore? Even now, people ask me, why don't you go and find a job in Singapore? My response to that would be to say that I can add more value in Malaysia based on my experience. And also at the time when I decided to do the management consulting job, I thought Malaysia would be a better base because there are more diverse kind of companies that are based in Malaysia. And I've not regretted that decision. Although I would say, you're absolutely right. Singapore really knows how to attract and train and then also retain talent. But at the same time, I will also say that Malaysia has the room to be able to allow good talent to rise up quickly to the top. But it has to be in the right company. It has to be in the right setting.
You're right. I mean, we will go into that, the details. But, because when I look at the first job is actually management consulting firm. They can easily offer you in Singapore. You choose to come back. But maybe tell us about your first early career experience, 2 years in consulting firm.
It was a steep learning curve. I learned a lot of things during management consulting that I practice, till today. I definitely used those skills when I was a politician. Being able to triangulate. That means triangulate meaning you take two data points and then you relate to the third data point. And in fact, when I was discussing some of these things with my wife, we came out with a new term which is like based on a quadrangulate. Yeah, so it's more than 3 points lah. Sometimes it can be multidimensional as well, more than one dimension. Trying to put and package ideas together to link different things to different situations and different contexts. So that was something that I really valued. Second thing is exposure to different industries.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So, this is one thing that you really helped me in politics, because sometimes, we're talking about the E&E sector, then later on we'll be talking about, waste management, right? So you have to pick up things very, very quickly and then have a very, overall summary of what the sector is like. And then the third thing is also to, in terms of working with different people, working with different very, very smart people, knowing what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then later just trying to align with them so that you can get the best output.
I see. But, to the listeners out there, to audience out there, will you still recommend our smart young people to join management?
Oh, definitely.
It's a good exposure.
If you can get into one of the top consulting firms, definitely go and try it out. It may not be a long-term career for everyone. In fact, most of my colleagues have left to join other organizations, but they still maintain ties with the Boston Consulting Group, and I'm sure it's the same for many of the other top consulting firms. So definitely a good learning curve, and then learn as much as you can. Maybe for 2 years, maybe for 3 years, maybe for 5 years, and and after that you come out, you have a lot of marketable skills that corporations would jump.
Oh
to
yes,
have.
Definitely. As a recruiter ourselves, we definitely always aim for those candidates from the management consulting firm. Wide exposure, as mentioned. But I was having the sessions with one of my colleagues also. It's like, hey, working management consulting firm is like a durian. Whether you hate it or like it.
I think it is one of the responsibilities and also challenges of management consulting firms to make their work relevant for their clients.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then also make their work interesting for their employees. And right now, I think one of the challenges I have is to see how I can prepare students for my PPE program and even for other students in the Taylor's ecosystem to make them think and to train them in a way that for those who are interested, how to make them into potential management consultant hirees, for example.
So you're preparing them so in advance that to enroll into the management consulting.
For those who have that interest. What I want to do is actually add value beyond that. So I'll give you an example. Let's say, I think that this student has the potential of becoming a good management consultant. You want, possibly this person to intern in one of the top companies, top management consulting companies. You would also want to give the intern certain outside the classroom research responsibilities. If let's say I'm doing research on together with a government entity or a think tank, be part of my research team in the academic setting. And when you are exposed to thinking about issues from a policy perspective, more analytical perspective, when you go to intern for a management consulting firm, you already have that kind of exposure.
I'm prepared. Yeah,
yes,
correct.
Exactly. So that is a more total, sort of like a total solutions kind of offering.
Wow, I'm so excited to the future talent pool in the market. Right, now back to you again, Kian Ming. With the summary of your background that I mentioned earlier, definitely there's always a peaks and valleys in your career. Mind to share the peaks first, then we go into valleys. What do you do?
Okay, can start with the peaks. I think when one of the peaks was definitely when I was appointed as special advisor to or special officer to Lim Guan Eng when he was finance minister. Went in there, had a lot of things to do. Had a lot of exposure to what the Ministry of Finance was doing, things that I still use now, and trying to build up that team, help Tony Phua, who was the other special officer. That was definitely something that was very enlightening. And then the other peak in government was also helping the Ministry of International Trade and Industry. Now it's called the Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry. I was deputy minister there, and helping align policies within the ministry. That was something that was very fruitful, and also making trips overseas. I went to China 6 times, to Hong Kong twice, to understand that kind of the policy landscape. And I'm very grateful for that experience, because even now I'm using those kinds of skills. And then the third, I think, highlight was after the change in government in 2020, I assisted Khairi Jamaluddin as Health Minister to roll out the vaccination program in Selangor, because that was a very, very tough time for many people, and that was definitely a highlight, working with Khairi and his team. The low points, I can say that also happened after Langkah Sheraton, because you went from deputy minister to losing your job overnight, and it is of no fault of your own. It is the actions of other people, including the former Prime Minister Tun Mahathir, and then all the hard work that you put in, suddenly you lost it, and then you had the lockdown. Right, so you went back to being an MP, an opposition MP, and then you didn't know what to do. Right, am I supposed to go out to help people? But you can't go out because there's a lockdown. All these political maneuverings and whatnot. So that was actually a tough time, and I don't mind also sharing. I probably had a little bit of a depressive episode during that time, because you were shut down at home, you couldn't do all these things, and then you just lost your job because of Langkah Sheraton. So I think that was definitely one of the low points in my career as a politician.
You did mention about those public figures that we know, they were there with you during the journey. How about others that were with you in the journey, peaks or during the valleys?
Sure. I mean, people talk about their family members. For me, it's definitely my wife. I actually met her when we were studying in Singapore. Same year as ASEAN Scholars. We got reacquainted later on. We've been married. This is our 20th year. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary next month.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. So she's seen it all. She's seen my highs and lows. She's been with me all this time, and I really value and treasure that.
Yeah, the support system is so strong, whether you are in peak and during your valleys time, right?
Yeah, because your family members are the ones that see you at your best and your worst, and they are with you through thick and thin.
Correct. Now you have this okay man tag, but I always say that you're always okay, of course, from a social media perspective.
Sure, yeah.
What do you do when you're not okay?
So when I'm not okay, there are a few things that I resort to. Firstly, exercise.
Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing that takes away the blues, as when you go running, right? So running usually by myself, sometimes with friends. The other thing that I think I find quite therapeutic is watching movies.
Right? What's your favorite series? The latest one?
I just watched a Netflix series called The Brother's Son, with Michelle Yeoh, and that was really, really good. It's about an Asian, Taipei, Taiwanese family.
Nice.
So that was really good. So watching these things always help. And then I think probably just hanging out with friends and family, because they are not there to judge you. They will accept you for who you are. So that's always a good safe space to go to.
Yeah, cool. Now I always see you, posting in social media about meeting your interns, helping them and maybe guiding them, and you are such a good leader, showing that, hey, my intern have moved on to one job to another. So I want to ask you about, what do you think about generally about Malaysian talent? I think that's the key topic that we always care about for the nation building, for sure. What do you think? And how can we be more competitive in such an ever-changing world?
Yeah. So I'll start off with the Malaysian talent first, and I'll relate it back to my intern's experience. I think Malaysian talent is world-class for the following reasons. Firstly, we are multilingual. Being able to speak 2, sometimes 3 languages, more if let's say we include dialects, shows that our brain is very flexible in terms of adapting to new languages. Second thing is, Malaysians are actually very flexible and quick on their feet, generally speaking, because the Malaysian context is not like Singapore. Singapore, the system is very rigid, right? You study hard, you do well, you rise up within the system. Malaysia, the contours are a little bit grayer, I'm sure you know, right? So that makes us much more agile, right? And that makes us very good in terms of being able to be deployed to other countries, other situations. And then I think the third thing about Malaysian talent, right, is that we are very good or experienced in working with different communities, right? So that ties into the multiracial setting of Malaysia, and that allows us to be very good people managers. Managing sideways, managing down. I mean, this is not true for everyone, but that is the kind of if let's say you can come out of that kind of system and do well, you'll be able to do well anywhere in the world, right? So that's the kind of Malaysian talent which is well recognized, among global companies.
Yeah, spot on.
So I link it back to my interns. During my 10 years in politics, I've had probably close to 200 interns. I'll share a story of one particular intern. She was from a humble background in Perak, and she interned for Malaysia Kini, and then I got to know her through some of the things that she wrote and some of the things that she spoke about. And then I reached out to her when I was studying in doing my PhD in the US. And then we got along. She wasn't my intern at that time. And then I had written quite a lot of articles for Malaysia Kini at that time. And they owed me some money. And then I said, okay, don't need to pay me. Why don't you give it to this person for her to buy her ticket to go to the US for her undergraduate. And that was the first time she took a flight. So we remain in touch ever since. Later on, she did some work for me as an intern after she started her schooling in the US. And we remain in touch to this day. This is probably more than 15 years already. And in fact,
and where is she now?
She is back in Malaysia doing remote work for an IT company based in Singapore. And one of the things that she did for me voluntarily was that because of her good experience as an intern, she actually sponsored an internship under my sort of like watch, whereby she paid the intern for a period of 3 months, 3,000 ringgit. So that was above market price for an intern, and she made it a competition. So she selected a few people to interview and all that, and then she gave me the best candidate, who was a PPE student from Oxford actually.
Awesome.
And later on, I recruited him to be a special officer to Lim Guan Eng. So all these things, have a good positive network effect.
The entire talent ecosystem that you have built.
Yes.
Impactful and powerful.
And he's still in Malaysia now.
Okay. So I want to emphasize she's still in Malaysia.
She's still in Malaysia. He's the intern that worked for me, who got that special internship program. He's still in Malaysia as well.
I see.
Yeah.
So this is this is more on the good side of the Malaysian talent. But let's come back with the questions, right? How can we be more competitive? Why I ask so is because when I was in regional role, I fully acknowledge that we are very good. We are good candidates, right? Let's say we're in the region. So a lot of investors is actually based out of Singapore, right? But if you really want to have any Malaysians that to shine, somehow you have to be in their office lah. However,
Singapore, Hong Kong, regional roles. Yeah.
But because since I'm handling the ASEAN region, I always try to promote Malaysian talent. Like few criteria that you mentioned lah, multilingual. We are the most sensitive, compromising human in the world because of the multiracial. And economically, we are relatively cheaper compared to our neighbor country. So all this is a package. So normally as a selfish Malaysians, I normally try to promote Malaysian talent for the region. So under my care back in ASEAN, in fact, and unfortunately also I exported a lot of Malaysian talent because it's so highly demanded. So that's also I was telling a colleague of mine that, alamak, I'm actually contributing to the brain drain.
Actually, I don't think you should feel sorry.
Yeah.
The reason why I say you shouldn't feel sorry, right, is that you want the talent to have the best experience. So if let's say that the next step for them to go is to take a regional role in Singapore, in Hong Kong or elsewhere, it's a good place for them to get exposure. And then the way we try to attract some of this talent to come back to Malaysia is to improve the ecosystem in Malaysia in terms of the quality and kind of jobs. We have situations, I think, in the region now whereby if let's say you have a good enough talent and that talent wants to be based in Malaysia doing the same role that person could have done in Singapore, that person can demand it now.
Remote work.
And also probably HQ will say, okay, good, then we don't need to pay you the living expenses of housing rental and all that kind of stuff in Singapore. Right. But we have to create that ecosystem in Malaysia in terms of work-life balance, in terms of the quality of life, and also the kind of work that we want to be made available, so that they can come back, or they can continue working in Malaysia playing those regional roles.
Yeah, I hope they will come back but unfortunately some of them already moved the whole family out of our country as well. So even if that's the case, right? Let's say they've converted their citizenship to Singaporean or other nationalities, I think that's fine. Because then
they may be able to be good spokesperson for Malaysia.
Malaysian talent,
They will
you're
be
right.
able to perhaps link business opportunities with Malaysia because of their experience formerly as Malaysians.
As I grow older, I have this awareness as well. It's okay. Even you want to contribute to the nation, doesn't mean that you have to, in a public service role. So let's say if you go out also, you brand yourself as a Malaysians and, continue spreading that, hey, Malaysians talent is really worth to invest in as well. That's why, because you see, we investing a lot and most of for big companies are investing in Malaysia, like Tesla, AWS also setting up a data center. So the first thing is actually for me that what worries me is actually, do we have enough talent, right? So I'm working very closely with Talent Corp. I was so anxious, like, hey, are you guys doing anything or not to attract, or maybe, go to Ivy League, attract all the Malaysians to come back. So this is something that I always wanted to do, even for any positions that I have in my, my past companies. The first thing is actually ask my team, let's go out, see how many Malaysians out there, then that try to convince them to come back. Because I'm quite grateful, all the companies I work with are big established organizations lah. So somehow the attraction factor is there. The chances are 50-50. Of course, rejections rate is higher. But if we always use the emotional part, where it's like come back for family, then probably that's one of the reason.
That's one. But I'll push it a bit further. I will also say that let's say you go to the UK, Australia to attract Malaysians to come back to work in Malaysia, and even maybe other nationalities to come to Malaysia to work as well. I think the pitch would be for the next 5 to 10 years. Asia and Southeast Asia is where you want to be, because this is where the action is.
Yep.
Because of US-China tensions, there's going to be a lot more FDI and a lot more economic activity here. So that's one. I think the other thing that we should also emphasize is that the kind of career opportunities in terms of career progression, right? No matter what you say, if you're in the UK, you're in Australia, you're in the US, there is some sort of glass ceiling, towards minorities and all that.
Yeah.
So in Malaysia, actually, the room for you to rise up is actually quite a lot. I was having drinks with the MD of a large construction company yesterday, and he's only in his mid-30s, right? So he's a Malaysian talent for a listed entity. So that's the kind of experiences and also opportunities that we want to create for Malaysians to come back and to be part of the ecosystem.
Sure. Now, talking of Malaysian talent, I recall Malaysian IR 4.0 that you and your team have initiated back then in your MET time. Where are we now?
So this is part and parcel of the process for improving in MET's case, the manufacturing sector, right? To automate, to digitalize, to bring in IR 4.0 principles and concepts. So we had a good roadshow. We increased awareness among the SME sector. We provided funding. And ironically, COVID actually expedited this, because a lot of foreign workers went back and then companies found that they couldn't hire foreign workers. So the incentive for many of those in the manufacturing sector to automate, to digitalize actually increased quite a bit. So I think we were lucky in that sense. But right now, I think we are on, in a different phase whereby those Industry 4.0 efforts, I think, will continue under the new Industrial Master Plan 2030 under MET, but we have to include new elements. AI, generative AI especially, how you want to incorporate large language models, in a mini scale, not ChatGPT, but using not general ChatGPT questions, but using ChatGPT to feed them databases and also data that is within your own organization, and then use that to enhance your own operations, right? So this is something that's still in the infancy, but it's something that I'm very excited about. I'm sure that there can be sort of like talent that can be nurtured in this area to be deployed in Malaysia and also other countries.
IoT as well in the manufacturing.
Yes, correct. That one is more IR 4.0. That time, still generative AI wasn't really in the ecosystem yet. But now you combine all these elements, the kind of information that IoT devices can collect, then you feed them into the generative AI LLM model and see what happens, see what comes out from there.
I read the IR 4.0 framework, high level one. They talk about digital competency plus attitude equal to employability.
Yes.
So to me, digital competency is trainable. right? All this attitude. But what is the I have not finished reading, but what is this attitude in this IR 4.0 framework?
Okay, so for this, my own thoughts have been, enhanced and also updated over time. Attitude, when we talk about, let's say from the boomer generation, is like, you have to, work hard, you have to, be at the office, you have to, follow the processes and all that. Then you marry that with your training, then you'll do well, company will do well. That may work for the older generation, but now for the younger generation, that doesn't apply anymore. So I think attitude is something that needs to be, that companies, that the government need to align with the younger generation.
Right.
Which means if you want them to go and learn IR 4.0, you need to gamify the process. Right? If let's say, there are IoT stuff coming in where you need to collect the data, are there ways in which you can say, okay, collect the data, if you can optimize it, we give you a reward. That is sort of like the gamifying, the gamifying of the system that can contribute to the right motivations from the attitudinal standpoint, right? So it's all about using technology to connect with the younger generation, right? And I think this is something that is that needs to be learned by corporations, by government, by politicians.
For certain companies, there are 5 generations in one under the one roof.
Sure.
So definitely, the way we do things. That's why agility comes in, right? So when you deal with the young talent, the way you talk to them, you don't need to see them every day, and they also don't need to see you every day.
They don't want to see you every day.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Right. So long as you empower them with a certain task, they will do well. So in my past, I deal with a lot of young talent. So I also need to be kind of prepared myself that anything I will challenge again. So this is how you want to work. Let's do it. And they will do it well.
The challenge is, how do you ensure that people at the top management can still connect with the younger generation in terms of how they work, in terms of the trends that the younger generation are following? And this applies to, let's say, even, we're in a media organization now. I was having dinner, where I was talking to a director in a media company in Malaysia. I shan't name that company. And then I was saying, nowadays podcasts are quite popular, right? What we're doing now, you mentioned just now, you come out for a while to do this. That is actually the title of the most popular political podcast in Malaysia in Malay, Keluar Sekejap. Right? They have over 270,000 subscribers. We talked earlier about BBK Network that appeals more to the Chinese crowd. They have over 300,000 subscribers. So I asked this gentleman, who's a director of one of the largest media organizations in Malaysia, have you heard of BBK? He said, no. Then I said, okay, you look, this is the number of subscribers they have. He was shocked. Then I asked, have you heard of Keluar Sekejap? He said, no. Then I said, this is the number of subscribers you have. So when the older generation, and these are people in the management kind of level, right, they are not able to connect with the younger generation, then you know that there's a very big disconnect there already.
Correct. That's why, in the corporate world, we have these employee engagement activities. We have this try to improvise a corporate culture to blend in based on the demographic of the talent that we have.
Yep.
I think we have to do that because they are the future leaders. And we are perhaps here for another 10 years, 20 years, or probably
hopefully longer than that, but you're transitioning to different roles, letting the young people take over.
Like, for example, now I'm a HR at Keluar Sekejap, right? So I would like to see more and more young talent to come in and to help out. That's why I'm so excited about IR 4.0, but at the same time, I kind of lost track. Where are we now? Where can we get all this information about the progress, about the data? At least for me, for my benefits, because I'm so into data.
Yeah, that one, okay, so the IR 4.0 thing that I did was more on the manufacturing side. Okay. Now, when we talk about big data, I just want to highlight something which is something that the government has done quite well. They're trying to grow the data ecosystem. Now there's, we are having our own national digital ID, but hasn't been launched to the public yet. They are recruiting the civil servants to do it. But one of the units called GovTech Malaysia, that's a GovTech Malaysia Nucleus unit. It's not formally a unit yet. The director actually talked about, relaunching data.gov.my. And this is Mampu's website, and it was relaunched in a way that's world-class, using young talent, young developers that's part of this unit. So that is, I think, something positive.
Sure.
And I think another thing that maybe, that we need to empower the young people with, which is what I do regularly at Taylor's, is to let them know, again, attitude, let them know the power of networking. So whenever I speak to students, I say, how many of you have a LinkedIn account? Right. So I say, if you haven't, if you want to get a good job,
Awesome.
get a LinkedIn account.
Yeah,
And then after that, for some, let's say my former intern that I posted about recently, I will actually meet up with them, take a photo with them, and after that, post about it on LinkedIn, and then use that to encourage them to post more on LinkedIn, to connect them with other people who may want to, recruit them and things like that. So this is a very active way of showing them how powerful LinkedIn is, and also to motivate them to get onto LinkedIn.
You're right. And I do that during my campus visit as well.
But the bigger challenge, is how do you get the politicians to engage on LinkedIn? Because most of the time, and I know this from my friends, people post for them, so they are not really engaged in the LinkedIn process.
Spot on. You know what? Only last week, I was telling a friend of mine, such a seasoned leader, not in politics, he is involved in the HR field right now. From the post that I saw, it's so robotic. This one, I was telling my friend, they must be from ChatGPT. The soul is not there. So you need to, how to engage with people if the soul is not there.
Correct.
So perhaps we can engage with Kian Ming one day to talk about how to create the content in LinkedIn.
There's a separate podcast. Yes.
You're right. Right. Now, throughout these conversations, we always talk about young people. I know you're very passionate about that. And now you're really directly involved in the education academia. Besides the academic achievement, what you want to see in your students, in the future leaders, because you are grooming the think tanks for the country and for in the region as well. Yeah. What else? What is your expectation?
Okay. I always like to do three things, focus on three things, easier to remember, easier to come up with as well. So the most important quality I want in leaders, including those that will undergo my program, is empathy. Empathy. Not talking about skill sets. The reason why I think empathy is important is that without having the empathy to think for others, to think of those outside your own immediate circle, you only do things for yourself, very selfish. And leaders that are very self-centered and selfish do not think of how to improve the country, how to improve their the institutions that they work for in ways that are more bigger picture. Not to say cannot, but less likely. So that's one. I think it will also make these people easier and better bosses to work with.
Okay.
A certain degree of empathy. It cannot be too much, cannot be too little.
Correct.
So just a good balance. I think second thing is strategic thinking. This is something that I find that most Malaysians, especially the younger ones, they are not exposed to enough. Which is, okay, I give you something, I give you a piece of information. How do you want to use that information to use it in a way that is strategic for, let's say, your career, for the purposes of, let's say, networking, for the purposes of being able to add value to the organization or to the task that you're carrying out. So a lot of people do things very perfunctorily. It's like, this is just a task, you do it only. Right? But you don't think of the bigger things that you can do in terms of trying to use that information to escalate it to a higher level. So I give you an example. I posted this on LinkedIn. I had a breakfast with the Vice President of Public Policy and Business Development of Tesla, coming from the US. First visit to Malaysia, and I tried to sell him all the good things about Malaysia, and I posted it on LinkedIn. And after that, I used that post to connect with one of the government agencies in Singapore, where I knew the chairman. And I said, hey, we should try to attract Tesla to come to Malaysia and Singapore to do more value-added activities. And I used that LinkedIn post to get that person's attract that person.
Okay.
And then after that, I set up a Zoom call between two agencies, one in Malaysia, one in Singapore, so that we can discuss further how to align on these kinds of expectations. So of course, that strategic thinking is from my many years of being in politics and policy. But you need to allow and train people to think that way from early on, so that they can use that in ways that are positive. Don't use strategic thinking to again, think of how you can sort of like falsify your claims and things like that. Like that one, no good. Do it in a way that is value added and contribute. The third thing I think really want people to think about is, even as you career progress, you train yourself, you benefit your institution, how then do you want to pass it on to the next generation? For example, when I chose not to contest, I already had somebody in mind to take over, right? And I announced it in May 2022 that I wasn't going to contest. This person I appointed as my representative in July, and later on he became the candidate, and now he's the member of parliament for Bangi, my own constituency, Charizan, doing very well there. So I hope that people also can think of that kind of passing it on, succession planning. Yeah, which you've talked about in your podcast as well, right? So those three things, I think empathy, strategic thinking, and also some level of passing it on. This kind of succession planning.
Talking about that, your Bangi, Kawasan Bangi, I really admire the succession planning. It's pretty rare in politics, especially in Malaysia. So kudos to that, to you and to the team as well. Right. So now, you talk about talent and knowing them and how to develop them. So have you ever thought of knowing yourself better? Okay, the rule of the game is you may skip one if they're really too deep for you and you don't understand that. And then, but we may choose any two cards. You may choose two cards in the same category or any category.
Yeah. Okay. I really. Yeah. So what do I do?
So just the question is, describe an argument that you have had help shape the person you are today.
Oh, okay. I'm going to venture into an area where maybe I've not spoken about publicly before, so to add value to the conversation. I had an argument with the former Secretary General of DAP. His name is Lim Guan Eng. He's now the chairman. And I shared with him privately at that point in time. It was after the Sheraton move that given the many contributions that he's made to the party, and also the time that he would spend battling some of the court cases that he's facing now, that it may be good maybe for him to consider not taking up the position of chairman of DAP. And I thought that would be in the interest of the party. It would be maybe even in his own interest, because then he don't have to take up that leadership position as well as trying to fight off all these other issues. It became an argument or point of a disagreement in the sense that he felt that I shouldn't have said that, and he felt that was a betrayal of trust to him, given all the support he's given to me, and because of that, he asked the branches under his control, especially those in Penang, not to vote for me during the CEC elections in my party. That was in 2022, and because of that, I wasn't elected into national office. But it shaped the person that I am today, because it's a blessing in disguise, in the sense that I don't hold any positions at the national level, which means I can do all those things that I talked about just now.
To say.
Exactly.
Yeah,
yep.
right.
So that is something that maybe I may not have sort of like shared openly before.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Okay.
Where is the edge of your comfort zone currently? Are you
the edge of my comfort zone. I'm actually very comfortable, doing what I'm doing now.
Okay.
I think if, let's say, I were to be asked to take higher responsibilities, let's say in any one of the areas that I'm contributing to now, then I think it would be challenging, because it means I have to give up something else. So for example, if let's say in tailors, I'm heading up the PPE program. If let's say somebody wants me to take a higher leadership position in the organization, that would be pushing my comfort zone already. Not to say I won't take it, but I'm more comfortable doing what I'm doing now. If let's say, for example, there was a cabinet reshuffle recently, and if let's say Prime Minister had asked me to go back into government either as a deputy minister or minister, that would have been pushing my comfort zone, because it means I would have to give up some of the things that I'm doing now. Not to say I wouldn't have said I would not have said no. I think depends on the offer. But yeah, I think that would have that would have put me outside my comfort zone.
So, what do you think about this game?
Good. I think if let's say we can approach it from a perspective of honesty,
yes,
and wanting to again add value to the listeners, to let them to peel back the curtain. So that actually will give people more insights.
More insights.
Yeah, rather than to give a very sort of like a standard answer, very perfunctory answer.
Yeah, right.
I think this also helps set the tone maybe for the future podcasts in this series.
I mean, you are doing podcasts as well.
Sure.
Let's have that kind of mindset that to share and to inspire people and give the different perspectives our people. Of course, in this podcast, it's about work life.
Sure.
So, and that's the wrap of our conversations today. I really have a key takeaway here. From these conversations with Kian Ming is that in order to contribute to the nation, you don't need to really in the public service. Thank you so much, and thanks Kian Ming.
Thanks
and
for having
all
me.
the best in 2024.
All the best to you as well.
Yes, thank you. So thank you so much, and till we meet again. Thank you so much. Okay.
See you.